The basal ganglia are the large masses of gray matter situated within the white core of each cerebral hemisphere and form essential constituents of the extrapyramidal system. The basal ganglia are now recognized as basal nuclei, but the former term is still commonly used. Anatomically, the term basal ganglia include Corpus Striatum, claustrum, and Amygdaloid Body. Functionally, the term basal ganglia also includes substantia nigra and subthalamus. Some workers also include red nucleus. The basal nuclei are important in organizing and coordinating somatic motor activities, especially willed movements. They are also involved in automatic stereotyped postural and reflex motor activities, such as normal individuals swing their arms when they walk. Corpus striatum. The corpus striatum is situated lateral to the thalamus. Topographically, it is almost completely divided into the caudate nucleus and the lentiform nucleus by a band of nerve fibers, the internal capsule. However, anteroinferior ends of these nuclei remain connected by a few bands of gray matter across the anterior limb of internal capsule. These bands give it a striated appearance, hence the name corpus striatum. Lateral aspect of the left corpus striatum. Relationship of the corpus striatum to the internal capsule. Corpus striatum, thalamus, claustrum and internal capsule as seen in horizontal section of the cerebral hemisphere. The lentiform nucleus consists of two parts, a darker lateral part putamen and a medial paler part globus pallidus. Phylogenetically, corpus striatum forms two distinct functional units, the paleostriatum and the neostriatum. The globus pallidus is relatively ancient and termed paleostriatum/pallidum. The caudate nucleus and putamen being recent in development, together form the neostriatum/striatum. The striatum is largely afferent, whereas pallidum is largely efferent structure. These features of corpus striatum may be summarized as follows. Caudate nucleus. Caudate nucleus is a large comma-shaped mass of gray matter, which surrounds the thalamus and is itself surrounded by the lateral ventricle. Its whole length of convexity projects into the cavity of lateral ventricle. Relationship of caudate nucleus with the cavity of the fourth ventricle and thalamus. Note that the stria terminalis, the main efferent tract of amygdaloid body, projects to the septal area, anterior perforated substance, and anterior hypothalamus. Its rounded anterior part in front of ocular foramen is called its head. The head gradually and imperceptibly tapers caudally into the body and then into a tail which merges at its anterior extremity with an almond-shaped mass of gray matter called amygdaloid body. The head is large and rounded, and forms the floor and lateral wall of the anterior horn of lateral ventricle. The bands of gray matter connected to the putamen across the anterior limb of internal capsule. The body is long and narrow, and forms the floor of the central part of lateral ventricle. It is separated from thalamus by stria terminalis and thalamus striate vein. The tail is long and slender, and forms the roof of inferior horn of lateral ventricle. Anteriorly, topographically, in the amygdaloid body. Lentiform Nucleus. Lentiform nucleus is a large lens-shaped, biconvex, mass of gray matter beneath the insula forming the lateral boundary of internal capsule. In horizontal section of cerebrum, it appears wedge-shaped with broad convex base directed laterally. It has 3 surfaces and divides into 2 parts. Surfaces. The lateral surface is convex and related to thin sheet of white matter, the external capsule. It is grooved by lateral striate arteries, the central branches of middle cerebral artery. Medial surface is more convex and related to internal capsule, limbs and genu. In transverse sections, the medial surface is ungulated at the genu. Inferior surface is related to sublentiform part of internal capsule and lies close to the anterior perforated substance. Parts. A vertical plate of white matter, external medullary lamina, divides the lentiform nucleus into 2 parts, the putamen and the globus pallidus. These are clearly seen on a cut section. The putamen is larger lateral part and consists of densely packed small cells. It is darker in color, and structurally similar to the caudate nucleus. The globus pallidus is smaller medial part. It is lighter in color and consists of large, motor, cells. It is also known as pallidum as it appears pale in section, pallid equals pale. The globus pallidus is further subdivided by an internal medullary lamina of white matter into outer and inner segments. Connections of corpus striatum. The striatum, caudate nucleus and putamen, is the receptive part while globus pallidus is the efferent part, outflow center, of the corpus striatum. Chief afferent and efferent connections of corpus striatum. Afferent connections. The striatum receives afferents chiefly from cerebral cortex, thalamus, and substantia nigra. Corticostriate fibers arise from a wide area of the ipsilateral cerebral cortex and reach the striatum through both internal and external capsules. Thalamus-striate fibers arise from mediodorsal, intralaminar, and midline nuclei of the thalamus. The majority of these fibers end in the caudate nucleus, the remaining pass through the internal capsule to reach the putamen. Nigra-striate fibers arise from substantia nigra and ascend up to terminate in the corpus striatum, mainly in putamen and caudate nucleus. The nigra-striate fibers carry dopamine synthesized by nerve cells of substantia nigra to striatum. Melanin normally present in the substantia nigra is a byproduct of dopamine metabolism. It is believed that these fibers have an inhibitory effect on corpus striatum. Efferent connections. Most of the output of striatum goes to the globus pallidus, however, some efferents also go to substantia nigra. The globus pallidus is the main efferent component of corpus striatum. The outflow from globus pallidus goes mainly to the thalamus, ventrolateral and ventroanterior nuclei. This occurs by way of 2 fasciculi, A, Ansa lenticularis looping round the posterior limb of internal capsule, and b. fascicularis traversing the internal capsule. Outflow tracts from Globus Pallidus, Paleostriatum. Also, note the interconnection between Subthalamic Nucleus and Globus Pallidus. These fasciculi enter the region between the red nucleus and thalamus, where they unite with the dentatorubro-thalamic tract to form the thalamic fasciculus, which ends in the ventrolateral and ventroanterior nuclei of thalamus, which in turn project to the motor and premotor areas of cerebral cortex. The subthalamic fasciculus passes through the internal capsule and forms direct reciprocal connections between subthalamic nucleus and globus pallidus. Some fibers from globus pallidus also pass substantia nigra, pallidonegral fibers. Functions of corpus striatum. In submammalian vertebrates, the corpus striatum is the sensory and motor integrating and control center. In later evolution, the activity of corpus striatum has become subordinate to those of cerebral cortex but remain essential for muscle tone, quality of movement, posture, and locomotion. Corpus striatum controls the automatic associated movements like swinging of arms during walking. It helps in smooth-handing the voluntary motor activity of the body. Claustrum. Claustrum is a thin saucer-shaped mass of gray matter situated between the putamen and mass of gray matter situated between the putamen and insula. It is considered as a detached part of the insula. Its connections and functions are not known. Amygdaloid body. Amygdaloid body is an almond-shaped mass of gray matter in the temporal lobe, lying anterosuperior to the tip of inferior horn of lateral ventricle. It is situated deep to uncus, which serves as a surface landmark for its location. Developmentally it is related to basal nuclei, but functionally it is included in the limbic system and therefore shares its functions. For details see limbic system. Substantia nigra. Substantia nigra present on midbrain. Midbrain. Subthalamus, subthalamic nucleus. This small nucleus in the ventral part of the diencephalon looks like a biconvex lens in coronal section. It is located caudal to the lateral half of the thalamus and inferomedial to the globus pallidus. It is separated from thalamus by a smaller nucleus, called zona incerta. The subthalamic nucleus and globus pallidus are interconnected by the subthalamic fasciculus, which traverses the internal. The functions of the basal nuclei are as follows. (1) Concerned with planning and programming of voluntary movements. 2. Determine how rapidly a movement is to be performed, and how large the movement must be. 3. Decrease muscle tone and inhibit unwanted muscular activity. 4. Regulate the muscle tone and thus help in smooth handing the voluntary motor activities of the body. 5. Control automatic associated movements, like swinging of arms during walking. 6. Control group of movements responsible for emotional expression. 7. Control reflex muscular activity.